Amin wa fikum, barakallahu fikum. Let us then continue. Bismillahi awwalahu wa akhirah. The author says, may Allah have mercy upon him, latifah. And something nice. Here's a nice point. Nice detail for you. I'lam أن ما تقدم من الصحيح والحسن والضعيف. No, that what has been presented about the sound hadith, the fair hadith, and the weak hadith, يشترك في بعض الأقسام الآتية. That is applicable, or yani shares with some of the upcoming types of hadith. Yani some of the upcoming types of hadiths, they have this classification of being sahih or hasan or da'if. If you remember, that's how we explained line number 2. وَذِي مِنَ قُسَامِ الْحَدِيثِ عِدَّةٌ. These are lines pertaining to types of hadith and topics in hadith. Iddah, counted. What does topics mean? We said it means divisions of hadith. What does aqsam here mean in the second line? It means types of hadiths. We said that, like Az-Zurqani said, yani Sheikh Al-Jabarti cited Az-Zurqani, who also explained Al-Bayquniyah, that really there's 3 types of hadiths: Sahih, Hasan, and Da'if, and everything else is a subcategory of those. But the way the second line is worded makes it seem like each category is an independent category of hadith. There's a Sahih type, and a Hasan type, and a Da'if type, and a Marfu' type, and a Mawquf type, and a Musnad type. No. According to what is being explained, there's 3 types: Sahih, Hasan, and Da'if. And these 3, they break into different types. So here, Sheikh Al-Jabarti says in this paragraph here, no, that what has been presented concerning the Sahih, Hasan, and Da'if, the sound, the fair, and the weak hadiths, يشترك في بعض الأقسام الآتية. They share in some of the upcoming categories. Those categories are Al-Marfu'. Okay, now I'm going to ask you, the Marfu', what's the Marfu' hadith, please? Tell me, what's Marfu'? 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, you have to have an answer here. Please. 1.5. Elevated to the Prophet. Sahih, correct. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So a hadith that's elevated up to the Prophet could be authentic or fair or weak. And maqtu', what's maqtu', please? What is a maqtu' hadith or report? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.5, 1 3/4. Okay. Maqtu' hadith is, or report is, no, not stopped at a companion. Maqtu' is cut off at the tabi'un. Maqtu' is cut off at the tabi'i, or beyond the tabi'i. So remember, you have marfu', attributed to the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. Then you have mawquf, stopped at a companion. Then you have maqtu', cut off at the tabi'i or anyone after him. So now this is a good paragraph for me to ask you. You're attending these lessons and you are being consistent, brothers and sisters. That's very good for you. But don't let listening be good enough for you only. Know the meanings of these words. Musnad. What's musnad hadith? What's a musnad hadith? Five, 4. Marfu' and muttasil. Correct. Marfu' and connected. Yes. So musnad hadith is one that is marfu', attributed to the Prophet, and also add to it has connected chain. So the musnad hadith could be Sahih or Hasan or Da'if. What's muttasil? What is the muttasil hadith or report? Five. Sent? No. 4. Connected with no interruption in the chain. Correct. Muttasil means connected, meaning it's a report with a continuous chain. A report with a continuous chain could be authentic or fair or weak. Musalsal, that's a hadith that has a certain series in its chain. We did not study its definition exactly, so I'm not going to ask you about it. Aziz, what's Aziz hadith? What is the Aziz hadith? Strong and at least 2 narrators, and that's lacking. 5, 4. Rare, but I need you to tell me like clearly what it is. Give me the picture of it. So 4, 3, 2, 1. Aziz hadith is a hadith that has at least 2 reporters at every level. At least 2 reporters at every level. So at least 2. Every level you look of narrators, there's never less than 2. So Aziz hadith can be authentic or sound, fair or weak. Okay, what about mashhur? What's a mashhur hadith? What is a mashhur hadith? At least 3 reporters at each level. Correct. Yeah, mashhur hadith is famous, but I'm not looking for the translation so much as that you make me understand what it is. At least 3 reporters in each level. Yes. That's mashhur hadith. So it could be sound or fair or weak. What about mu'an'an? What's a mu'an'an hadith? What is a mu'an'an hadith? Narrated by an? Okay. Like from an Sa'id, an Karam. From Sa'id, from Karam. Yeah. Okay, so mu'an'an hadith is a hadith in which the narrators report from each other by using the word an, which means from. An fulan, an fulan, an fulan, from so and so, from so and so, from so and so. Not clearly with tahdith. That's true. Yani, it's not explicit. An does not mean that you explicitly heard from the person, which you are reporting, that is. Someone's going to try to get one past you. He's going to tell you something. He doesn't want to tell you. Yeah, and he wants to give you the wrong impression of where he got it from. He wants to give you the wrong impression without lying to you. He wants to leave you assuming that he meant something. And he'll tell you from Sheikh Fulan. And because you've learned, and especially if you're doubting him, you might say, you heard it from him? And then if he's a person who won't lie, but he doesn't want to tell you, then you're going to see his reaction, his hesitation, yani, because he's not going to lie to you. Subhanallah. Okay, Al-Ali. What is the Ali narration? What is the Ali narration? What is the Ali narration? 5, 4. Less number of reporters, elevated with lower number of reporters. Yes. Yani, Ali narration, a high narration is one that has fewer narrators, meaning the fewer the narrators there are in the chain, the higher the chain is. But that still could be weak. That's what we're saying here. Could be Ali, a high chain, but it's weak, or it's fair, or it's sound. And Nazil, I'll just give you that one. Nazil is the one that has a lot of narrators, or more narrators comparatively than the other one. And what about the Mawquf? We covered the Mawquf. The Mawquf is stopped at the companion. And he has a few more here. Wal gharib, wal fard, wal mudabbaj, wal muttafaq, wal muttafaqi, wal muttafiqi, wal muftariq, wal mu'talifi, wal mukhtalif. These different types of hadith, they are either Hasan or Sahih or Da'if. وَيَخْتَصُ الضَّعِيف But there are some kinds of hadith that are weak. They are weak intrinsically. They are by themselves weak. Such as Al-Mubham. That's the one with an unidentified person in the chain. Al-Mursal. That's the one in which the Tabi'i attributes the hadith directly to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam without mention of his intermediary. Al-Munqati'. That's the one that has someone missing in the chain, or possibly more than one, but not in a row. Al-Mu'dal. That's the one that has 2 consecutive narrators missing, or more than 2 in a row. Wal-Mudallas. That's the narration that's rigged by its narrator. He is manipulating the chain so that you would think he heard it from someone he didn't hear it from. Washadh, the irregular, that would be the one that appears to be authentic. Had it not been for another report, we would have accepted this one. There is no obvious defect in this shadh report. This irregular report. So shadh is always weak. And al-maqlub, when you reverse the words or rearrange the words, that's weak. Or if maqlub means when you take a metin off of a chain and put it with a different chain, like what they did with Bukhari, if you remember the story. Wal mu'allal, and the defective, the obscurely defective, that's weak in particular. Wal muttarib, clashing, when all of the renditions cancel each other out, meaning we cannot give weight to any of them. So we need to disregard all of them.
And mu'allal, you said we don't. There's a defect, but we can't.
It is obscure defect, mu'allal.
Obscure. What's meant exactly?
Obscure means khafi.
Yeah, I know, but what does it mean?
It means that it doesn't have it doesn't have an obvious defect in such a way that we would call it, instead of mu'allal, something else like mursal or munqati' or mu'allal. If it were obviously defective, like if it were obvious case of tadlis, we're going to say mudallas. If it were obvious case of someone missing from the chain, we're going to say munqati'. Like this, has obvious defect. So we're going to call it by the name of its defect. But when it doesn't have an obvious defect, then, we're going to use a generic name for it, which is mu'allal, defective. Once I gave an example to help draw a picture for you. Like, suppose you were talking to someone like a Wahhabi, and he's saying something that's contrary to what you learned. And then you told him, where's your evidence? So he says, right here. And he really shows you a hadith. He opens the hadith in, Allah knows, Tirmidhi, Abu Dawood, or somewhere. And then you saw the hadith and you looked at the hadith and it looks like it's against the religion, different from what you learned. As if saying what he says. So then you tell him, I need to get back to you. And then you go ask a sheikh. And then maybe the sheikh has to get back to you. And then, so when the research is done, for example, then it's going to be documented about this hadith. What? هذا حديث معلل, for example. This is a defective hadith. It has such and such and such and such. So it's not an obvious defect, so that it should have the name of whatever that obvious defect is.
Subhanallah. And al-maqlub, you mentioned two, but I got them. But what do you mean? The first one you mentioned was about reversing the words.
Reversing the words, like instead of saying
إنما الأعمال بالنيات مثلا إنما النيات بالأعمال مثلا.
Well, the example that I know is, instead of saying he gave a charity on his right side in a way that his left side doesn't know what he's doing. It says he gave charity on his left side in a way that his right side doesn't know what he's doing.
Okay.
It got reversed. So in some books, that's an example of maqlub. Yani the maqlub that's in Nukhba is different from the maqlub that's in some other books.
MashaAllah. But so you gave two definitions. I mean,
yeah, the maqlub in Nukhba is the one we just now mentioned. The maqlub in other books is when they, according to what they mean by it, is when they deliberately mix and match the chains and texts to test the scholar.
Yeah.
Like in the story of Bukhari.
Yeah. Subhanallah. So about reversing the words, they would know. Scholars, how would they know? I mean, they would
from another text, for example.
Yeah, from another hadith or from the other routes. I mean, they would know that. For example,
or from something else that might be a proof. Some other circumstance that would be a proof that there's a mistake in the rendition.
Subhanallah.
Question. Oh, so it's not a matter Uh, oh, it's not.
Matan. Matan.
It's not take a metin off a chain and put in a different chain. The maqlub, you mean? So according to some, it is. According to some, they define maqlub differently. So we'll see how maqlub is defined here. What I have learned from taking al-Baykuniya is that maqlub in al-Baykuniya means when they mix and match the texts in the chains to test the scholar. Maqlub and Nukhbatul Fikr is the other one.
شيخي خطر لي سؤال أريد سؤالك.
Yes.
I want to ask you about if someone was to what is it called? I forgot in English. يشكك يعني someone
Make him doubt.
Yeah, someone might say like you just mentioned maqlub and some examples and mu'allal, and the scholars like okay they made all these efforts, I mean, you know, to tell them out, and he might say, so you can't take these for granted then. I mean, the hadith, the what are they called, the Quranists, or يعني من باب الرد, how to refute these allegations, or you know what I mean, fallacies, how to.
Can you repeat what is the fallacy?
يعني if someone were to say that since you're mentioning all these maqlub and mu'allal and some of these weak hadith, I mean, someone might say وما أدراك إنه باقي الأحاديث بقية الأحاديث كانت they were from such a sort, you know what I mean?
I would say to that person, well, if that were the case, it would have appeared, because it's not going to be the case that all these tens and hundreds of thousands of hadiths are going to be in compliance with each other. However, they happen to be all flipped and mixed up and switched around. The consistency that we have seen in the hadiths is evidence that actually this the hadiths are checked and the hadith science is accurate, or else we would have found these hadiths not consistent, and we wouldn't have been able to prove them to be so consistent. And because we have these different types of weak hadiths, munkar and mubham and muttarib, etc., we know about these weak types because of the efficiency of the hadith science, not because the hadiths are ruined or useless. Rather, there are bad reports, there are mix-ups, there are mistakes on the part of some of the narrators. They've been isolated and found.
Yeah, yani what I'm trying to say is, someone might say, like, well, there would be a margin of error in the end of the day.
Yeah, there's margin of error. That's true.
Yeah, and then you'd be, I mean, even in the which applies for these, they might say, I mean, applies for the others. So there might be a margin of error. How could you take these for granted? And you know what I mean? What I'm trying
because
to say.
Yes, because you say to them, because the religion guided us to know that it's valid to work according to confidence.
Okay.
Did Prophet Musa alayhi salatu wasalam in the Quran go to a single man and ask him to teach him? I would say to a hadith denier. Did he go to a single man and ask him to teach him? So the answer is yes. So I'll say to that hadith denier. So why he did that? Tell me. So if he says, well, he was a
Why what?
Why would Musa go to learn from that man? Because it's against the hadith denier's conviction that to go and sit down with a teacher. He thinks all he needs is the Quran and nothing more. He doesn't, it's not merely that he doesn't take the hadiths, he doesn't take anything. He doesn't take from the scholars also. He doesn't take the hadiths, he doesn't take the hadith explanations, he doesn't take the tafsirs of the Quran.
Yeah, true. So, and Musa, he might say Musa is a prophet.
Yeah, but why Musa asked them go to the other man to teach him, which is Al-Khadir. So maybe he'll say Al-Khadir was a prophet. I'll say to him, he wasn't teaching him the Quran though. What he was teaching him? A sunnah? He was teaching him prophetic sunnah?
Not that either, neither.
Well, he was teaching him something.
Yeah.
So then, what's your problem with taking from a person? Is the point of the example.
Yeah, so it goes back to relying on confidence, and this is what we're
relying on confidence and norm.
You see,
like an easy example, you say to a person, like I might say to him, what if your mom came home and said, I've been robbed? So what do you think? Is she lying to you or she's telling you the truth? So I don't know what he might say. If he's stubborn, he might say, I don't know, or he might say she's lying to me. Well, no matter what, though, I'll say to him, but whatever answer you came to, whether you tell me she is lying or whether you tell me she's telling you the truth, how did you come to that conclusion? Even if you say she's a liar, then how did you come to the conclusion that her news is unreliable? Based on standards.
Yeah, true. I got what you're saying.
You had standards in order to be able to take someone seriously. When that person didn't fulfill your standards, then you didn't take. And if he says to me, no, I'm going to say my mom is not lying about being robbed, then I'm going to say to him, she could be, though. Why would you not deem her a liar? Same answer. Based on standards, based on clues. Because you know her, you would say to yourself, she was robbed. She's claiming to be robbed. Let me think here. Let me look at the possible options here. Is she lying to me? You might say, I don't think so. I'm not confident that this is a lie. Is she perhaps crazy right now? No, she's not crazy. Is she at least delusional and she thinks she was robbed and she hasn't been? I deem this unlikely. Has she been lied to? Someone told her that she was robbed and she believed that one, and although she wasn't really robbed, seems also unlikely. So then what you're going to do, after you do your process of elimination, you're going to say, I think she's telling the truth. And you're going to act.
It's not, for example, her habit to lie about this. This is at 2.
Yes. Meaning you know her.
Yeah.
Your familiarity with her is the clue for you. Yeah. Whereas, on the other hand, if you knew someone who really was a scoundrel, he really was a liar, maybe he's a drug addict, let's say. You know someone, he's a drug addict. So he's asking you for money and he's telling you about how he lost his job. He got kicked out of his house. He was walking down the street. The car splashed him with mud. It's the worst day in the world. He dropped his phone down the sewer hole. Everything's wrong. Now he needs money from you.
Yeah, you're definitely probably not going to take him.
Yeah, you don't believe him. Why? Based on the clues, based on something that you have as a standard.
Yeah, sure.
So just like that, these hadiths, they are verified. I'm talking in general. These hadiths are verified. And the science is effective. And the scholars, because of the effectiveness of this science, they were able to isolate the problematic reports. And even sometimes the report would have a problem in it. Once they isolate the problem, the report becomes useful from there.
Mm-hmm.
Because then they knew what the problem was. So then they can rule that part out and use the rest of it.
Mm. Otherwise, if someone were to doubt every report that he gets, it's I'm not sure what they say about this, but it's gonna be like it's how are they going to live? I mean, within
Exactly.
absurd.
They cannot live like that. They can't live according to their own religious standard of not wanting to take anything from a fallible person. How do you book an airplane flight? Maybe they're lying to you when they tell you when the flight's going to go.
Mm.
Like that.
Mm.
You're going to believe them.
According to confidence. How do you translate that? Dhann or
Dhann, yes.
Okay, this is what. Yeah, true. I wanted to say so. يعني هم يمشون على الظن ونحن أمرنا في الدين بأن يعني هون في هذه الأمور بأن نتبع الظن، أو نسيت التعبير الذي يقوله العلماء في مثل هذه الأخبار، يعني تعبدنا بهذا في فقهيات وغيرها، بعض الأحاديث يعني التي هي ظنية، يعني ليست قطعية.
For us, the issue is even easier, yani, because of the reports that we don't reject that prove this. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he sent a single person to inform the Muslims that the Qibla was changed, and to inform the people that donkey meat is haram and that mut'a marriage is forbidden until the end of the world. Also, he sent two people to Medina when Medina was still Yathrib, before the Hijrah. He sent Mus'ab and Ibn Maktoum. Now, hadith denier, I'm not going to give him these references because these are from the hadiths, so he's going to deny the hadiths anyway. But we know that in reality, this is how things go. True. A king is going to just send, for example, a person to the other country.
True.
Send his prime minister or something.
Sure. Historically speaking, even when an army would be defeated, they would send one, for example, or one would report that, like, what happened. This happens a lot. Happened a lot, actually.
Yeah, that's why they have amongst themselves, even in old days, a war crime would be killing the messenger. It's like known amongst the countries that at the least you don't kill the messenger. Like the enemy sends you a messenger. So you hear what the messenger has to say and you let him go back. Or this is a declaration of war.
Yeah.
MashaAllah.
أحبك الله سيدي أفتنا.
آمين وإياكم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.